So when I was in the English 221 class, I wish that I would have learned more about how to handle a situation when a writer comes in only interested in grammar corrections. Usually I work Sunday nights, so I often have students who come in with a paper due at 9 a.m. the next morning and saying, I just want to talk about grammar, but they also have larger scale issues like fluency or the thesis is a little off, and how do I transition that student from only grammar corrections into these larger scale issues in their paper without giving them too much work to do when they leave the writing center at 10 p.m. for their class at 9 a.m. the next morning.
One thing that I wish that I had learned in 221 was how to politely get students back sort of on track. I think something that I struggle with is I'm a really good listener, and I think a lot of students can sense that, and so I've had now about 3 or 4 times during the semester where students have come in clearly very upset, and I always start out every session saying, how is it going, what are you working on, and I'm very bad at getting them to go back once they sort of divulge what's going on. So I've had several students like burst into tears, and because I'm like me and I like just try to help people, I am sort of like hesitant to be like, okay, so I'm really sorry that happened, but can we talk about your paper?
In 221, I wish that I had learned how to give students instructions about how to continue editing their paper once the session is over.
Like all the different citations, so like what citation is appropriate for what kind of paper, and then also like the structure of certain papers, because we went over like briefly like how to write a lab report, but I just wish that we got like some kind of tangible like outline of a lab report or something like that. Yeah.
I wish that I had known how to handle appointments where students come with essays or work that they really need help on, but it's due that day, and so it's hard to know what to prioritize.
Because oftentimes I don't finish going through the paper with them, and they're kind of left out on the street to finish the paper on their own, and it's hard for me to give them proper instructions on what to continue doing because we've just been going through the paper together. So I wish we would have learned that.
That's one thing I think I wish that I'd sort of learned, was the ability to very nicely and very sort of professionally say, okay, like now it's time to transition back, or to just sort of be able to like put on a front where I'm very nice, but I don't engage them in that because I'm not very good at that.
I was actually really fortunate since I had a really good professor. At the time I took 221, Arnie Sanders. There really wasn't anything that I wish I'd known, because I already came in with the expectation that it wasn't going to be super easy.
When a student comes in wanting to work on just grammar or just organization, and then I read their paper and it needs more than that, I'm not sure how to approach that when the paper is due like later that day. And also another thing that I just thought of is when you have a student and they ask you to like validate why you're a writing center tutor, tell them why you're qualified to help them, because we've obviously taken this class and we know how to like help them better than they do. And so knowing like the right things to say when you're asked those kinds of questions.
I think I wish what I had known was earlier on, just that it was going to change a lot. So I knew there were going to be changes in the writing program, but I didn't know that the whole thing was going to double in size, that we were going to have a new director. I didn't really know about any of that. So
What I wish professors would teach their students about writing is to be very clear about how students should be writing within their discipline, because the only class that we all take together is up to writing proficiency in English, and I, as a tutor, have no idea what a peace studies professor wants in a paper. So if professors were more clear about that, the students would be able to explain that to us as tutors, and we would be able to help them accordingly.
If I were to give a piece of advice to professors about how they're teaching students, I would tell them to recommend that students utilize the Writing Center earlier in their process. I think that professors put a lot of emphasis on the final product, And so students don't come into the Writing Center earlier. So when they do come to us and it's due in a day or 2 days, we're not able to give them the full range of help that we could have given them, say formulating their thesis or working on the organization of their essay. And that really limits what we can do to help them and prevent students from coming back to the Writing Center because they don't see the full range of skills that we can develop.
I think faculty, there's been a really good change, especially with Lana, the new director, coming on, and sort of more faculty encouraging students to come here. But that being said, I think there's still a huge sort of understanding of the Writing Center as being a place where you come for proofreading.
Emphasize to the students that we as tutors don't see proofreading.
So even with the super writing heavy majors, for example, Peace Studies, I still have students coming in who are like, can you look at my grammar?
So I would want to tell the faculty that the Writing Center really is for everyone, not just struggling writers. People often come who aren't struggling writers but just want to talk about their paper, like have someone else read it or like talk out an idea. And I would say especially for science students, for their teachers to ask them to come, because I've never seen a science student and I'm sure that there are people who struggle. I've written lab reports and I know that in the upper level science classes, lab reports become way more involved and on your own, and it takes a lot of time and effort, and it might help to have someone else just look over it.
We're really just there, or we can be there just to be an objective person to discuss your writing with, so it doesn't always have to be like the technical stuff of grammar or like organization or any of that. Like you could just talk about your ideas and just get that kind of like objective feedback, because everyone needs a person that they can talk about their writing with. So
Professors have so much on their plates and they're so overworked that they don't have time to go back to those very basic skills. And so it makes a lot of sense that that falls on us, but at the same time there needs to be an understanding that like the Writing Center we're not just gonna proofread. I've had students be like, why can't you just do this? Like, it's not that hard. And I'm like, because that's not what we do.